In Japan, there is a legally recognized religious organization whose leader claimed to speak directly for Jesus Christ. Not symbolically, not metaphorically, literally. The same man also claimed to channel Buddha, Confucius, Napoleon Bonaparte, Shakespeare, and extraterrestrial beings from distant star systems. These messages were not private visions. They were performed publicly, transcribed, sold, and treated as historical record. Millions were exposed to them. Tens of thousands believed them. And the movement behind them still exists today. This organization is known as Happy Science. To understand how something this extreme could operate openly, without hiding underground, without armed standoffs, without mass disappearances, you have to understand modern Japan's relationship with religion. After World War II, the country rewrote its constitution to prevent state-controlled belief systems from ever again dominating society. Religious freedom became absolute. Intervention became rare. And over time, a loophole emerged. As long as a religious group avoided overt violence, the state would look away. Happy Science understood this environment perfectly. The story begins with a man named Ryuho Okawa, born in 1956. By all external appearances, Okawa was unremarkable. He was educated, disciplined, corporate. He attended the University of Tokyo, one of the most competitive institutions in the country, and later worked as a salaryman at a major trading firm. He lived the life expected of someone groomed for stability and conformity. According to Okawa, that life was a lie. In the early 1980s, he claimed to experience a sudden and overwhelming spiritual event. He described it as an awakening in which a higher intelligence revealed that he was not merely human, but a chosen vessel. Over time, he identified this intelligence as El Cantare, a supreme cosmic consciousness said to guide humanity across civilizations, planets, and epochs. At first, the message was subtle. Okawa described impressions, feelings, flashes of insight. Then the communications became clearer. Voices, dialogues, eventually, full conversations. By the mid-1980s, he declared that El Cantare was speaking through him directly and that he could channel this being at will. This alone might have remained another obscure new religious claim. But Okawa didn't stop there. He expanded the channeling. Soon, Okawa claimed the spirits of history's most powerful figures were speaking through him. Jesus Christ, Gautama Buddha, Confucius, Socrates, Napoleon, even literary figures like Shakespeare. Each spirit, he said, had urgent messages for humanity, and only he could deliver them. These sessions were conducted publicly. Okawa would sit, close his eyes, change his voice and posture, and begin speaking as the summoned entity. The messages were recorded, transcribed, and rapidly published. Hundreds of books flooded Japanese bookstores, each marketed as authentic spirit testimony. Followers were told these were not interpretations. They were transcripts. Doubt was reframed as spiritual immaturity. Skepticism was portrayed as ego. Critical thinking itself became a moral failing. As Happy Science grew, its teachings shifted. Early messaging focused on personal happiness, self-improvement, and enlightenment, ideas familiar and comforting. But gradually, the tone darkened. The spirits Okawa channeled began issuing warnings. Humanity was approaching a critical point. A cleansing was coming. Natural disasters were no longer natural. Earthquakes, tsunamis, disease outbreaks, these were described as spiritual corrections. Punishments delivered to purge impure thoughts and immoral societies. Those who suffered, followers were told, had failed spiritually in this life or a previous one. Fear was introduced carefully, then normalized. Happy Science taught that spiritual protection existed, but it was conditional. Protection required alignment. Alignment required devotion. And devotion increasingly required money. Donations were framed as offerings that raised one's spiritual rank and reduced karmic risk. Those who gave more were told they were safer. Those who hesitated were warned, politely, calmly, that doubt weakened spiritual defenses. Leaving the group was not forbidden outright. Instead, it was framed as spiritually dangerous. Former members were said to lose protection. Misfortune, illness, or tragedy were explained as consequences of separation from truth. But the most effective tool Happy Science used was not doctrine. It was imagery. Beginning in the 1990s, Happy Science began producing full-length animated films. These were not obscure training videos. They were released in theaters, marketed professionally, reviewed publicly. On the surface, they appeared to be fantasy or science fiction, but to followers, they were prophecy. In these films, cities are destroyed by supernatural forces. Demons invade Earth. Political enemies are portrayed as literal embodiments of evil. Nuclear war is depicted as both inevitable and necessary. Humanity survives only through obedience to spiritual truth, delivered by a savior figure modeled unmistakably after Okawa himself. Animation allowed the cult to bypass rational defenses. Viewers were not asked to analyze claims. They were shown consequences. Emotion replaced logic. Repetition replaced debate. Children watched these films. Families attended together. Belief became visual memory. At the same time, Happy Science expanded its real-world reach. It acquired properties, built temples, and established schools and training centers. Then in 2009, it entered politics. The movement founded a political party aligned explicitly with its spiritual worldview. The party advocated for military expansion, constitutional revision, and aggressive stances toward foreign nations, particularly China and North Korea. Political rivals were framed not merely as ideological opponents, but as agents accelerating humanity's destruction. This fusion of religion, nationalism, and apocalyptic belief placed Happy Science in a uniquely dangerous category. Its authority was not just moral, it was cosmic. To oppose it was not just disagreement, it was rebellion against destiny. Despite criticism, the Japanese government largely tolerated the movement. No mass violence occurred, no armed conflict, no single incident crossed the threshold required for intervention, and so the group continued to grow, quietly, legally, and persistently. Former members have since described intense psychological pressure inside the organization. Endless seminars reinforcing doctrine. Financial demands framed as spiritual responsibility. Public praise for obedience. Subtle shaming for doubt. Private fears interpreted as signs of negative spiritual influence. Reality itself became conditional. Then, in 2023, Ryuho Okawa died. For many cults, the death of a founder is fatal. Charismatic authority collapses. Belief fragments. Followers drift away. That did not happen here. Instead, Okawa's death was reframed as a transition. Followers were told his spirit had ascended to a higher plane. Communication would continue. Guidance would remain. El Cantare had not been silenced. It had merely changed form. Leadership structures already in place ensured continuity. Teachings were archived. Films continued to circulate. Donations continued to flow. The god had moved, but the system endured. Today, Happy Science remains active. Its properties still operate. Its political wing still campaigns. Its ideology, combining fear, nationalism, and absolute spiritual authority, continues quietly. What makes Happy Science unsettling is not just its strangeness, it is its normality. It did not isolate itself in the wilderness. It embraced modern media. It used animation instead of barricades, books instead of weapons, legality instead of secrecy. It demonstrated that a cult does not need to collapse society to control people. It only needs to redefine reality. Because when one man claims to speak for gods, history, and the future itself, and no one is allowed to question him, the apocalypse doesn't need to arrive, it already has.